Now, I have a big announcement for you. CDD have completed their Afro Barometer report. It's going to be released tomorrow morning. We have a sneak preview for you. It's very, very interesting what the CDD say, what they obtained from Ghanaians. They spoke to over 2,000 people, and the results are quite damning for the government. We'll show you what it is. Okay, so CDD Afro Barometer results to be released tomorrow. Now, what's the Afro Barometer? The Afro Barometer just speaks to Ghanaians and gets a sense of what Ghanaians are thinking, and they ask questions that if elections were conducted today, who would Ghanaians vote for? And when we ask that question, we just ask about NDC and NPP, because those are the main two political parties. Remind me, later tonight, I'll be telling you something about a new movement that's being set up, and Professor Busakara is one of them. I'll tell you about it. Hopefully, I shouldn't forget that. Anyway, it just came up as I was coming into the studio. So, yes, so this is the CDD's Afro Barometer report. It is to be released tomorrow, but you had the details, well, not the details, you had the sneak preview first on Good Evening Ghana. Let's move on and see what they have. Okay, so this is the big story. So in the Afro Barometer reports, Ghanaians are being asked, if the elections were conducted today, who would you vote for? Now, 22% say they'll vote for Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. 29% say they'll vote for John Dramani Mahama. So we're going to be analyzing this. Now, when was the report conducted? You know that for these surveys, it's always very important to find out when the survey was conducted. It was conducted around the 29th of March, 29th, 30th, 31st, and 1st April of 2022. Now, that was the time that the e-levy had been passed. And so the NPP analysts who are looking at this are saying that, oh, we had passed the e-levy, and so our situation was unpopular. And in March, the economy had been severely hit. And March was when we first felt the economic situation that we are still not out of. It first came in March. So they are saying, oh, well, that was March, and this end of March, at that time, everything was terrible, and really, we couldn't help it. And we are even grateful that 22% of Ghanaians in that circumstance still said they'll vote for the NDC. But the interesting thing is, 22% of Ghanaians said they'll vote for Akufo-Addo and the NPP. 29% said they'll vote for John Dramani Mahama and the NDC. But why is it so low for both political parties? That suggests that something can happen. Okay, so the NPP people are saying that conduct this survey again a year from now, and you will see us come back and come above the NDC, because here the NDC had nothing to lose in this survey. They had nothing to prove in this survey. They were not those being assessed. It's the NPP that's being assessed, and so the NPP dwindling in fortunes from the 51% in election 2020 down to 22% approval ratings. A survey conducted with over 2,000 people drawn from all 16 regions is very significant. But of course, they are saying that all over the world and across the world, you have heads of states everywhere in the world having low approval ratings because of the global economic hardships that is running across the world everywhere. So they end up with 22%. Now the NDC, that is not being assessed. That doesn't have anything to prove. They are the opposition party. People should have said that we will not vote for the NPP, we'll vote for the NDC. But here, the NDC comes up with 29%, 7 percentage points of the ruling party. Now, that's what is going to be discussed tomorrow, because the CDD are going to publish this matter very strongly. Now, let's go to some of the details. We will not take the wind out of the sail of the CDD. Tomorrow, they'll publish this. But these are some of the little details. Okay. It goes and says both the ruling party, NPP, and the opposition, NDC, are not doing well in the eyes of Ghanaian public. Even more worrying is for the NPP, which over the last 5 months had faced huge battles in both Parliament and with the general public in their attempts to pass the e-levy introduced in November 2021. Government was also under pressure in managing the economy generally as economic hardships intensify here and elsewhere across the globe. What the Afro Barometer numbers show, if it's anything to go by, is that the vast majority of Ghanaians are not happy with their government. The poll was conducted shortly after Parliament finally passed the controversial e-levy, and Ghanaians were either preparing to pay or to avoid the e-levy. But with the popularity of both the presidency and the government very low, the opposition NDC did not seem to be benefiting from this, with the vast majority of people still undecided. But by the way, it's 2.5 years to the election. So yes, in 2.5 years to the election, most surveys will say that people are undecided. Let's move on. One that with less than 2.5 years to the next general election, the elephant has a tall mountain to climb. That's the NPP, have a tall mountain to climb if they were to have any clear chance of breaking the proverbial 8. 2, that the NDC still has a lot of work to do to convince Ghanaians that it is the alternative that people can trust. what the figures also suggest is that Parliament is even less popular than the presidency, with the two almost neck to neck, with a 71% disapproval rating for parliamentarians, and the president at 70% disapproval rating. Okay, it continues. This is the 9th round of the Afro Barometer survey in Africa since 2019 Afro Barometer survey. A sample size of 2,400 was used, with the number of persons selected from the regions reflective of the region's share of the national population. The 3 priority areas on the minds of Ghanaians according to the April polls were: 1, the economy, and that's going to be 1. 2, unemployment, and 3, infrastructure. Do you see something missing in there in terms of the things on the minds of Ghanaians? Education is missing in there. Now, how do you interpret that? Do you interpret that to mean people are satisfied with free SHS and the education policies going around the country? Because not long before the survey, KNUST commissioned the biggest social science center department in Africa at the KNUST. It was very glamorous. It looks very glorious just before then. Now, I don't know what your interpretation is, but my interpretation of this suggests to me that people were not particularly concerned about education. And education naturally concerns everyone. If a survey is showing that people are not concerned about education, it means they are believing that education is kind of sorted, isn't it? Okay, this week we have had stories from Upper West region where we know that free SHS is encountering problems. Dr. Duchum, the education minister, is sorting it out. In fact, this evening, as we came into the studio, news reached almost every media house that the problem in Upper West region regarding food for SHS borders is being sorted out. So the survey shows the economy, unemployment, and infrastructure as the key things on people's minds. Okay, with crime and security and poverty and destitution curiously being the least mentioned. That's also important. That education is not mentioned at all by the Ghanaian people. We don't know what that means, but you can tell me what you think that means. 87% of respondents think the economy is headed in the wrong direction. Okay, however, about 50% of respondents were less optimistic of the economy, a number which can either get better or worse between now and December 2024. Over 70% of respondents did not have the confidence in the government's ability to improve the economy, though. This survey, mind you, was before July 1st. It was before the July 1st announcement of Ghana signing up to the IMF program. Corruption perception was the highest with regards to the police. That's something that Dr. Dampare must do something about. Does it mean that the arrival of Dr. Dampare's colossal anti-corrupt character is winning or is being deconstructed one way or the other? This survey was conducted at the end of March, first week in April, and it shows that people are still worried that the police has the very high perception of corruption. Okay, how did the police wriggle themselves from that? However, if elections were held last April, only 29% will vote for the NDC, with an even low number of 22% voting for the NPP. 18% refused to answer, massive number meaning both parties still have a lot of work to do to convince Ghanaians. The despondency, however, appears to be more within the ruling party, where 13% of NPP supporters saying they will not vote in the next elections. Less than 5% of NDC supporters said they will not vote in the next elections. Now, I'm not sure why any NDC supporter says he will not vote in the next election. Well, for the NDC people, this might be good for Dr. Kwabena Dufour, who is pushing an agenda that Dramani Mahama must be changed as a leader. He's going to say that there are 5% of NDC people among the people polled by the Afro Barometer survey who said that they will not vote in the election, and they are NDC people. Dr. Dufour is going to say that if I'm the candidate, perhaps that 5% will vote. This is very interesting times, isn't it? Very, very interesting times. Does this all mean that a third group of people, a third force, a third thought can do something in 2024? And I'm going to, let me just get sorry, I need to go on my phone and get this information, because Dr. Abu Sakara is setting up something, and it is called National Interest Movement. I should have told my graphic designer to write that down. Dr. Abu Sakara is setting up a national interest movement. They're going to be meeting on the 19th and 20th of July, and they're going to be discussing among their patrons constitutional reform. Now, I have always said that the first port of call for us to change anything about the society is constitutional changes. And these days on social media, people have been talking about neoliberalism and capitalism and which is good for our society. There's a groundswell of conversation about what we do next. What should we do to change our system? We have been running a fourth republic for 30 years. We've been running a constitution for 30 years. It might be time for us to look ahead. Now, this conversation is not a conversation of journalists, because if you leave it for journalists, we will not go anywhere. It's a conversation for everybody else. People should not feel that because they cannot participate in the conversation of constitutional amendment, it ought not to be the one. It is the most important. And that's why I'm excited about what Adom-Otchere is doing, because he's setting up the national interest movement, and his first thing is to discuss with a roundtable of some of the people he has selected, what constitutional reforms do we need? Because we do need the constitutional reforms, don't we? We absolutely do need the constitutional reforms. And that's the first port of call. If you get the superstructure sorted, a lot of the things will be sorted. All the corruption things we talk about will be sorted. We talked about Britain. I made that point in London last week. Now, what we see about Britain, that we clap for Britain, is not because they are good people. It's because they have a political system that also can change. I'll be saying a little bit about Britain just before I go off, because it's interesting what's happening there. Anyway, back to Afro Barometer report. So this is the conclusion of the survey, and this is how it will end here for us, because tomorrow the CDD will be releasing the survey. Okay.